Hello everyone. Today's subject is reading. Let's continue reading our lesson, A Letter to My Daughter. Objectives: to make inferences and judgments. Before we continue reading the lesson, let's recall some important ideas that we have read in the previous parts. We know that the text portrays two different worlds, the mother's world and Maya's world. In the mother's world, which means the past, segregation was strictly defined, which means that segregation was stated in front of everyone's eyes. Black people knew their place in society. So since segregation was marked, Black people knew what they could do in society and what they were not allowed to do. Black people were mistreated, of course, and deprived from their human rights and freedoms. For example, when the mother's grandfather died because he was not allowed the use of the dialysis machine. It was only allowed for white people back then. In Maya's world, which means the present, segregation was officially over. Black people, however, were still marginalized, which means that they were treated as inferior and still discriminated against. Basically, then, we can conclude that on the surface, segregation is over, but deep down, it is still present. Let's continue now with A Letter to My Daughter, Part 3. The vocabulary words that you will encounter on this slide are abundant, which means plentiful or a lot, strident, harsh, interracial, involving different races. It is not easy to know how to keep you believing in yourself, even believing in your abundant radiance and beauty. I know there was a time when you couldn't understand why I wouldn't allow you to wear a white character mask at Halloween, or why I told your grandmother to stop sending you white dolls. It's hard for a mother to know just how far to go with principles, though. And I think you helped me develop a somewhat less strident attitude in your own brilliant, unpredictable way. I remember refusing to buy a white Barbie, even though the store didn't have the black one with equivalent turn colors in the sun hair. You were not happy with me, even though I explained at length the reasons regarding not bringing dolls into our family who looked like they would not possibly be a part of our family. You don't see any of your white friends begging for a black Barbie doll, do you? I asked, adding what I thought would be the final word. But several days later, in another conversation, you asked, "Mom, do you have any white friends?" "Of course I do, Maya, you know that," I answered. "Do you like your white friends, Mom?" "What a question, Maya. If they're my friends, then I like them." "Well, Mom, you delivered your knockout punch. My black Barbies want some white friends too." "Well, my dear, from that moment on, your doll collection became interracial." Throughout these two paragraphs, we get to see that the mother is lost. She doesn't know how far to go with principles and rules. She doesn't know how to explain things to her daughter. In paragraph 12, there's an argument about dolls. The mother doesn't want to buy her daughter a white Barbie. Maya does not understand why. The mother tells her daughter, "You don't see any of your white friends begging for a black Barbie doll, do you?" Several days later, Maya asks her mother several questions. She asks her if she has any white friends, and then she tells her that her own black Barbies want some white friends too. That's when the mother realized that the doll collection involved different races. So Maya's doll collection became interracial. Some of the words that you will encounter throughout these two paragraphs are engender, to cause to exist or to develop; pervasive, common; demonized, portrayed as threatening; camouflaged, hidden. It is so hard to know how both to engender the possibility of color not mattering, where people will truly be judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character, and to give you understanding that will create a protective armor for the real world of racial bias that exists around you. I don't want to limit you, to have you always on edge, as I sometimes feel, questioning the intentions of white playmates or teachers. Decisions based on color are so pervasive, and people of color so demonized in this country, though racist comments are often thinly camouflaged by such terms as teen-aged mother, the criminal element, welfare cheaters, drug dealers, school dropouts, at-risk students, that understanding societal realities does not come as easily as it did in my childhood. Yes, Maya, I really do want to believe that a color-blind future is possible. I never express my doubts when one of the parents at your school calls at the last minute to invite you to a birthday party, adding that Susie, whom you hardly know and seldom play with, but who is the only other black girl in your class, is coming. Throughout these two paragraphs, the mother tells us that she wants to believe that a color-blind future is possible. She wants to believe that there is a chance or a possibility that one day color will not matter. And she hopes that one day people will truly be judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their personalities. So she wants to teach her daughter that color doesn't matter. She wants her to believe that one day color will not matter. But at the same time, she wants her daughter to understand, and she wants her to protect herself from the real world of racial bias. She wants to teach her that yes, a color-blind future is possible, that we should not judge people based on their skin color, but at the same time, she wants her to protect herself from the racial bias around her. She doesn't want to limit her. She tells her, I don't want to limit you, to have you always on edge. She doesn't want her daughter to always question the intentions of her friends or teachers. But at the same time, it's really hard not to do so because there are a lot of racist comments hidden behind terms like teenaged, mother, the criminal element, welfare cheaters, drug dealers, school dropouts, at risk students. All these terms relate to black people. So her mom wants to teach her daughter, she wants to open her eyes to the reality of the world around her. Before you move on to the homework section, let's identify the definition of stereotypes. A stereotype is a thought that may be adopted about specific types of individuals or certain ways of doing things, but that belief may or may not accurately reflect reality. So basically, a stereotype is a generalized idea or belief towards specific types of people. For example, all Asians are good at math, or all Asians like to eat rice. These are stereotypes. We cannot generalize. So, if one is good at math, that does not mean that all are good at math. If some people in Asia like to eat rice, that does not mean that all of them like to eat rice. Or, for example, guys are messy and unclean. So, if one guy is messy, that does not mean that all of them are messy. Or, for example, that women are not as smart as men. So, again, if one is that way, that does not mean that all are that way. So, we cannot generalize.